Welcome to the latest Motley Fool scoreboard. I'm on in Chocobaloo. We've got longtime fools, Emily Flippin and Asit Sharma, giving a 1 to 10 rating to my personal Thursday night football provider, and many others as well, Amazon. I think they do other stuff. Ticker symbol AMZN. First, we'll talk about that business and all of its different businesses, I guess, including factors like industry and competition. A 10 is invincible. A 1 is hopeless. Osset's giving a 9. Emily's giving an 8. Osset, give me that 9 case.
Well, this isn't going to be any surprise if anyone's heard me talk about Amazon in the last year. But by 2026, this is on track to be the largest scale company in the world with higher revenue and higher margins than Walmart. And it's well on its way to $1 trillion in sales. We'll probably reach that somewhere in 2028 or 2029. Now, here's a math question. What is every margin point of improvement worth when you're selling $1 trillion worth of business? It's $10 billion in incremental profit and incremental free cash flow if you can make that. So this is a company I think that is just at a huge scale advantage versus so many other businesses on this planet. Also, I think AI, which has been so much discussed around hyperscalers like Amazon, is going to be significant to the company. Amazon Web Services has slowed down over the past few years. It's picking up again, but the margins are surprisingly high this year. And I think there is something to that. I think enterprise businesses are starting to use some of the applications that are machine learning oriented that Amazon Web Services offers to make better sense of their data and use it in a more useful way in terms of generative AI. So there's some interesting things going on with this company. I'm going to give it a 9. We can get more into some specifics as we go along.
I give it an 8 here, and I agree with Asa, but I will say, to say that every point of margin is an improvement, that could be worth something like $10 billion. When you are Amazon's business, it is not easy to eke out those margins. That e-commerce margin profile has been incredibly volatile. So they really heavily rely on AWS here in order to drive profits. And AWS seems to be losing a little bit of steam. While they're still ahead of Google and Azure, their gains have slowed, and that business is still pretty early in the stage of advertising for their e-commerce side. So I am just a little bit more concerned about some of those headwinds in the near term.
And Asa, thank you for making that one margin point of $1 trillion, a rhetorical question. I think I had an 80% chance I would have gotten it, but the Jeopardy pressure, I might have messed up. Let's talk about management. Warren Buffett's a 10. Homer Simpson is a 1. Osset's got a 9, and Emily's got an 8. Let's start with Emily.
Yeah, this is a little bit higher than I expected it to be, actually. But I will say, I think Jassy has done a great job stepping in after Bezos' departure, which is a hard thing to do. And it's good because he's maintained continuity for the business and done an incredible job with AWS. And while he has kept that kind of Amazon-esque long-term focus, which investors like myself love, I have those concerns around corporate governance and the treatment of employees, especially like the warehouses and working conditions, which just continue to put Amazon in the news, month after month. That does kind of detract for me a little bit. I wish they could do more there to stop that bad press.
Emily, when I heard you giving your score, I thought maybe mine should be a little bit less than a 9 because I've had some similar concerns about their workforce. Maybe offsetting that a little bit is the fact that Amazon was one of the first large-scale businesses to institute a $15 minimum wage within its business. But then again, we hear so much about Amazon truck drivers. We hear so much about other parts of their business, like a forced return to a 5-day work week across the whole company. I wonder about that. Anyway, to focus on the positive, why I gave it a 9, I think Jassy has done a great job on build out. So building out infrastructure across e-commerce, regionalizing distribution, which is one of the reasons why I think, Emily, that e-commerce margin may be less volatile going forward, investing in robot automation technology in its warehouses, and saying goodbye to some underperforming business lines. I think this is one of the things that makes Amazon such a strong business going forward. And I will leave it here with a 9, but maybe if I could have, it would have been a 9 minus after listening to Emily.
I don't know. I was having enough trouble trying to move the decimal point 2 places over. I don't know how I average a 9 minus, but we'll do it. We'll get it done. For financials, a 10 is a fortress, a 1 is yikes. In following form, Osset said a 9 again, and Emily said an 8 again. Osset, you go ahead with the 9.
Yeah, sure. I see this rising sort of holy trinity in Amazon's free cash flow. Amazon Web Services is increasing its free cash flow profile. The other businesses like digital advertising are doing the same, and commerce is getting bigger, and it is starting to really contribute to this after doubling the size of the infrastructure during the pandemic. Amazon has now pulled back from scaling out that network. It's built, now they're optimizing it. So you see a company which will regularly now cross, say, $100 billion in operating cash flow in a quarter. It'll take home 45 to 50 billion. And that's just tremendous scale. I think this will help cure some of the balance sheet issues I see. Like Microsoft, Amazon doesn't have quite the strong balance sheet it did in the past. I mean, it's still a fortress, okay, but not quite what it was. But with this cash flow that they're generating, the free cash flow, I think that within, let's say, 8 business quarters, will make that balance sheet look a lot healthier.
Yeah, I like this business. I agree with Osset. I give it an 8, not a 9, though, because I don't like the variability in e-commerce product. Profits and some of that reliance on AWS, especially concerning to me. And I think it's easy for investors to forget just what this variability can look like. In 2022, the North American e-commerce business, like that core business, lost nearly $3 billion in operating profits. And it's easy to say, oh, well, they were investing a lot, like Osset mentioned, in distribution and fulfillment, logistics, that sort of thing. But their CapEx associated with the North American e-commerce business in 2022 was actually lower than in 2020 and in 2021. So the lowest in 3 years. And they still lost $3 billion. Now that profit has rebounded substantially to nearly $15 billion in profits over the course of 2023. But that variability is concerning to me. And I have to dock points for that.
Yeah, you hope that I know that there was a serious amount of effort into, hey, we're not so growthy in e-commerce anymore. We've got to actually be super profitable. I guess we'll see if that's a long-term trend or if it's very variable, as Emily fears. Let's talk about valuation. Emily, how well will Amazon stock do over the next 5 years? And how safe is it? 10 is a sure thing. 1 is a lottery ticket.
Well, this probably comes as no surprise. I give this a 10 to 15%, a solid market beater with an 8 in terms of safety. I think Amazon's valuation is really reasonable here. And Osip talked a lot about their ad business. I think that could play out really nicely for them and contribute to that profitability, reducing some of that variability that we talked about. The reason I give it an 8 on safety, though, is because I do think they have their biggest risk right now is losing market share with AWS, which they've managed to do a pretty decent job about maintaining, although there are competitors, as well as regulatory risks that I think are worth noting as any large tech company today.
Yeah, I'll agree right in line with you, Emily, on those scores. I see a 10 to 15% appreciation for this company over the next 5 years, and I think it will achieve that in the context of free cash flow and earnings per share. And I think 8 is fair. Balancing out all these strengths, as you mentioned, is the regulatory risk and also the competition to get the yield out of AI. I mean, this is sort of an unspoken or an increasingly spoken truth about this business that Amazon, Microsoft, and their worthy competitors are all building out this capacity. It has to be utilized at some point. There's no one better in this business at understanding how much capacity to build and not overbuilding than Amazon, but it's still a risk over the long term. So 8 on a safety score, which is still pretty strong.
Time for everyone's favorite. Top it. Emily, is there a company in Amazon space, another one like Microsoft, space is big, that you like better?
Yeah, it's really hard to say better, but it is worth noting that Shopify has been incredible at doing what Amazon couldn't in the area of small businesses. And those results are really paying off for shareholders and consumers, especially heading into the holiday season. So I think that's what investors should keep an eye out for.
Yeah, and for me, there just aren't that many comparables to Amazon. We can compare it to more pure play cloud companies. We can really compare it to like Walmart, which I mentioned earlier. But because of that lack of comparability, it's hard for me to find a company that I would say within this space, here's a better idea. I feel this should be in most investors' portfolios who want to grow alongside the cloud and the still enormous potential of e-commerce over time. So I hate to give this cop out, but for those reasons, I'm going to say there's not a company in this space that I like better.
Well, thank you to both Osset and to Emily. They've given Amazon an overall score of 8.2 out of 10. That's a tick up from the 7.4 that Rick Menares and Matt Frankel gave it the first time we did it earlier this year. Above 8.0 means that I have to own shares for at least $1,000 worth and for at least 5 years. I already own Amazon, so I'll just keep holding away. Look out for a new scoreboard every market day at 7 p.m. Eastern. Next up is a sports gambling play. Till then, Fool on.
Why did the chicken cross the road?